lab on Crew Dragon, the Crew 3 crew. That mission is targeted to launch this fall. It will carry Crew Dragon Commander Raja Chari, pilot Tom Marshburn, whom are both of NASA, mission specialist Matthias Maurer of the European Space Agency, as well as a fourth crew member who will be added soon. The Crew 3 astronauts will also complete a 6-month mission as expedition crew members aboard the space station. They will be joined there by 3 additional crewmates who will launch on a Russian Soyuz spacecraft. This will mean that 7 people will be on the space station at one time, allowing NASA to effectively double the amount of science conducted in space.
This will be Chari's first trip to space, but he has more than 2,500 hours of flight time as a test pilot. The U.S. Air Force colonel is also a member of NASA's Artemis team and is eligible for assignment to a future mission to the moon. Crew 3 will be Marshburn's 3rd visit to the space station and his 2nd long-duration mission. He flew on STS-127 and Expeditions 34 and 35. Marshburn is also a medical doctor who once served as a flight surgeon and medical operations lead for the space station. Like Chari, Maurer will be making his first trip to space with the Crew 3 mission. He has extensive experience in engineering and research, and he spent 16 consecutive days in an underwater laboratory as part of NASA's Extreme Environment Mission operations. Now let's head back over to Marie at Kennedy Space Center. How's it going over there, Marie?
Thanks, Gary. Things looking good here in Florida. If you are just now joining us, welcome to coverage for the mission known as Crew 2, NASA and SpaceX's third flight with crew to the International Space Station.
はい、皆さんお疲れでしょうが、
1 hour 9 minutes
まだ今日の配信です。
until liftoff. Myself and Kate Tice and Tracy Caldwell Dyson here have all been vaccinated against COVID-19, and that's why you see us here sitting together without masks on. Liftoff is still holding for 5:49 and 2 seconds Eastern Time, and we're tracking no issues at the moment with Falcon9 or Dragon. The range is green and weather is looking good. Over the last 3 hours, our crew of Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Thomas Pesquet, and Aki Hoshide donned their SpaceX suits in the historic crew quarters suit-up room.
いやー、なんだかんだ、昼まで寝てしまいましたけど、まだちょっと寝足りないかなって感じですね。今、朝が早いので、どうしても目が覚めちゃいますね、朝。
Well, this is SpaceX's 3rd time flying astronauts in Crew Dragon. It will be the first time a European astronaut will fly aboard Dragon. If you remember back in November, we launched NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Jaxa astronaut Soichi Noguchi to the International Space Station, and those 4 are nearing the end of their 6-month science mission. They are scheduled to return home to Earth just a few days after the Crew 2 astronauts arrive on station. Over the next hour, we will conduct a series of polls to get ready for launch, have the crew armed the escape system, and begin fueling Falcon9. Launch is set for 5:49 a.m. Eastern Time. This will include a 12-minute flight to orbit and then a 23.5-hour flight to dock with the International Space Station tomorrow at approximately 5:10 a.m. Eastern Time.
宇宙船の中で待機中ですね。
T-minus 1 hour till launch. Tracy, what is going through the astronauts' head right now as they're seated in their capsule and they're ready to go? They still have another 60 minutes to go. Can you give us any insight into what they may be experiencing right now?
Well, normally I would say, building off of experience, that inside an hour, it seems like eternity before the season's light. You're in there chatting it up with your crewmates, but watching these guys, they're having a little party in there. Hand signals are flying. I understand they're playing a game that we thought was rock, paper, scissors.
あ、マジですか？
I'm
間
learning
違ってる？
from friends
ちょっと今直します。
it's
せっか
actually a
く作っ
game
た
that
のに。
Thomas knew when he was a kid and has shared it with his crewmates. And so
どこ行った
I guess there's no better way to bond than through childhood memories and that are being recreated in the capsule right now. But all kidding aside, these guys are probably glancing back and forth at their monitors, like you see there, and just checking systems, making sure that they're keeping track of what's going on with the vehicle, listening to the sights and sounds, maybe a little bit of chit-chat, but inside an hour they're listening up for what might be coming in through their ear from the teams on the ground.
いやー、まあ洗濯したり買い物行ったりいろいろ
The second of
バタ
six
バタしてま
planned
して。
rotational missions NASA has contracted already with SpaceX as part of the agency's commercial crew program. The success of the Demo 2 test flight last year allowed NASA to complete certification for SpaceX to fly astronauts like these regularly to and from the International Space Station. And that paved the way for the Crew 1 launch.
いやー、今日夕方になったら暑くなってきましたね。いよいよ季節が巡ってきた感じが。
that Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley first flew in almost 1 year ago.
We've been hearing from the crew on board Dragon. Like you can see there, they're currently strapped into
星
their
出
suits.
さんが何
They've
か
already gone through all of their communication and suit
はい、お疲れ様でした。
checks. They're able to follow all the milestones that they still have ahead of them on the
今張り替えま
just
した。
above them, which allow them to gain insight into all of the Dragon and Falcon9 systems.
羨ましいな。はい、こんにちは。
So right now, as we're coming up to the T-minus
まさか星出さんの打ち上げが見られるとは。
let's check in with Hawthorne for a status on both vehicles. John, what updates do you have for us now?
ちなみにこのドラゴンって5人、7人でしたっけ乗れるはずなんですが、まだ3人しか乗ってないんですね。
Now, T-minus 45 minutes, the team will report their readiness with a final electronic go-no-go poll. At T-minus 35 minutes, Falcon 9 propellant loading will begin. The Dragon spacecraft you can see right here on the monitor with the crew access arm next to it. Earlier today, the Dragon operators performed a series of checkouts of the Dragon flight systems, and the spacecraft is also currently go for launch. The 4 astronauts are currently inside Dragon, and the hatch is closed. The SpaceX closeout team has left the pad, and they'll be outside of the blast danger area very shortly.
4人なんですか。
Now, before we can start loading propellant on the Falcon 9,
星出
we've
さん
got
は
two
一番向
major
こう側
items
にい
to
ますね。
perform. First, we need to retract that crew access arm away from the Dragon capsule to its launch position. Now, that'll happen between T-minus 44 and T-minus 42 minutes. Now, we move the access arm away to obviously clear the way for launch, but we also do it in
ね、
case
お
the
察し
Dragon capsule has to leave
お
the
察
launch
し延
pad
期な
in
ん
the
でしょう
event
か。
of an emergency before launch. Now, once the arm is out of the way, the launch escape system will be armed. With these two events complete, Dragon will be ready for Falcon propellant loading. Now, the range is currently clear for launch from historic Pad 39A. The worldwide network of ground stations and the tracking and data relay satellites are ready to support Dragon as it heads into orbit. On the weather front, weather continues to look good, both at the surface level and the upper altitudes.
はい、こんにちは。
We are continuing to wait
ま
for
あ、
a final input
はい、
from
こ
the
んに
weather
ちは。
team
ベ
coming
テラン
up
ば
in
っかり
about
ですよね、
5
今回。
minutes on ground level winds in case we had a Dragon abort somewhere near the launch pad. Right now, those conditions are go, but we're getting one more set of balloon data to make sure that everything is good. Now, today, we have an instantaneous launch window at 5:49:02 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, or just after 49 minutes past this hour. Now, once we begin loading propellant, there's no opportunity to change the T0. We are committed. We're going to get one chance at it today. But the good news, Jesse, at T-minus 62 minutes and counting, we are go for launch.
Thanks, John.
あ、そうなんです
Good
か。
to
向
hear that
こう
we
ベ
are
スケ
still
さんなんだ。
go. Today's launch
手前がベ
marks
スケ
the
さんじゃなくて。
second time a rotational crew will fly on a commercial spacecraft, and each of our crew members brings a diverse set of experiences to today's flight. Crew Dragon Commander Shane Kimbrough will be making his third trip to space. He was born in Killeen, Texas, and raised in Atlanta, and was selected as
手
an
前はシェーン・
astronaut
キン
in
ブローさん
2004.
か。
Kimbrough is a retired U.S. Army colonel and holds degrees in aerospace engineering and operations research. He first launched aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour on STS-126, then aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft for Expedition 49 and 50. Kimbrough has spent a total of 189 days in space and has performed 6 spacewalks.
Pilot Megan MacArthur will be making her
この人
second
ベテ
trip
ラ
to
ンですね。
space, but her first one to the space station. She was born in
この人初
Honolulu,
め
but
てなんで
considers
すね。
California her home state. She holds degrees in aerospace engineering and oceanography, and was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2000. MacArthur served as a mission specialist aboard Space Shuttle
マッカーサー
Atlantis
ですっ
on
て。
STS-125, the final servicing mission of the Hubble Space Telescope in 2009. She operated the shuttle's robotic arm over the course of 12 days and 21 hours, capturing the telescope and maneuvering crew members throughout the 5 spacewalks to upgrade Hubble's science instruments, along with removal and replacement of other components to lengthen the
え、
telescope's
星出さん
life.
船長なんですか？日
Hubble
本人が
continues
船
to
長になるっ
operate to
てこ
this
とあるの？
day, providing scientists the
無
opportunity
事
to
に
make
月
more
まで
and more
発
deep
射
space
します
discoveries.
ね。
Mission specialist Aki Hoshide has suited up for his third space flight today. Born in
え、
Tokyo,
まだ
Hoshide
星出
was
さんでも
selected
3
as
回
an
目なんだ
astronaut
な。
in 1999 by
はい、
the
こんにち
National
は。
Space Development Agency of Japan, known today as Jaxa. Hoshide earned his
星出さんいい
degrees
顔
in
してますね。
aerospace engineering and
どんどん
mechanical
顔が丸く
engineering.
なっていくな。
He flew on STS-124 aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery to deliver and install Japan's science laboratory, Kibo. He also flew aboard the Russian Soyuz on expeditions 32 and 33 for a 124-day visit to the space
褒
station.
められてい
Things
まし
continue
た
to
よ。
progress nominally. Next up is cycling the
そうです
orbit
か。
tank
まあ、
isolation valves to equalize
ど
low
うな
flow
んでしょうね。
pressure here in about
微妙
15
です。
seconds.
Copy. We'll be listening.
若田さんも船長さんやってなかったです
In
か？
2014, he also served
あ、
as
船長って
commander of
ISS の
the
船長です
18th
か？
NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operation, which was an underwater expedition at the National
そうで
Oceanic
すね。
and Atmospheric Administration's
星出
Aquarius
さん今回
habitat
コマン
off
ダ
of Florida's Key
ー予
Largo
定なんだ。
coast.
Mission specialist Thomas Pesquet will
星
be
出
making
さん
his
は
second trip to
ISS の
space.
船長
Born
に
in
なる
Milan,
予定
France,
です
Pesquet
ね。
was
あ、そうなん
selected
です
by
ね。
ESA as an astronaut in 2009.
2人目
He
の
has
コ
a
マンダー
degree
で
in
すか。
spacecraft design and control and more than
いい顔してる
2,300
な。
flight hours as a
笑。
commercial airline pilot. Pesquet first flew to space on the Soyuz as a flight engineer for expeditions 50 and 51. In that time, he worked on more than 50 experiments and performed 2 spacewalks to maintain the space station. He's
はい、どうも。
logged 197 days in space. Pesquet will be the first European to fly in Crew Dragon, and it will be the first time a
あと
European has launched
59
from
分
America
11秒で
in
すね。
more than a decade.
6時
Each
45
of
分
these
ぐらいでし
4
たっけ？
crew members will join Expedition 65
48
once they
分か
arrive
な。
at the International Space Station, with Aki Hoshide taking over as commander of the station right before Crew 1 departs.
All right, we're inside 59 minutes from launch. The day is a continuation of regular crew flights to space station from U.S. soil. This will be the third Crew Dragon flight with crew and its second long-duration mission to the International Space Station.
The
Dragon
astronauts
SpaceX, you are go for section 6. When ready,
星出
report
さ
go
ん
for
頑
launch.
張って。
Copy. Section 6. In work.
すべてがスマートですね。昔のいわゆるロ
The
ケット発
astronauts
射
are also
とはイメ
flying
ージが
on the
全
Crew
く違
Dragon
う。
Endeavour,
そうです
which
ね。
is
だい
the
ぶ
same capsule
ました
that launched Bob Bacon and Doug
まあ
Hurley last year.
簡素
And
化され
today,
てはいま
Bob's
すよ。
wife Megan is the pilot
ツイ
on
ートし
this
ておきます
flight,
か。
sitting in the same seat that he did. It's been an awesome
結構
countdown so
前から
far. Weather
この
is
体
still
勢
looking
トイレ
good,
行きたくな
and
り
the
そう。
excitement is
左上
picking
の
up
カ
as
ウ
we
ン
get
ターがカウ
closer
ン
and
ト
closer
ダ
to
ウン
that
です
T0.
ね。
That's right, Jesse.
こ
We
の
had a
体
great
勢で
countdown
トイ
today,
1時
starting
間
to
の
suit
ヒ
up
ー
just
トし
over
とか
3
なあ
hours
かんの
ago.
きついね。
The SpaceX team helped the
え、
crew put
もう
on
で
their suits
も
and
だいぶ
conduct
時
initial
間経ってま
checkouts
すよ、す
before
でに。
crew walkout. Crew walkout was where
SpaceX
Shane
Endeavour,
Kimbrough.
go for launch.
SpaceX copies. Go for launch.
All right, the crew reporting go for launch real time. This just comes right after crew walkout where Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Thomas Pesquet, and Aki Hoshide gave final goodbyes with friends and family gathered outside the operations and checkout building before they began that roughly 20-minute ride out to pad 39A.
And though it was early morning before dawn, we did still get some awesome views of those Teslas heading down the NASA Causeway before the crew arrived at the pad. And once they arrived, they all took a brief moment to enjoy the view of the vehicle that they will be taking flight on.
1時
And then they
間もこ
headed
の
up the
体
fixed
勢。
service structure to begin a
背中が
process
痒くな
known
り
as
そう。
ingress. That is where the astronauts entered the
後
vehicle
ろから
and
ついて
the
く人
SpaceX
が
team
かっこいい
performed
な。
a series of checks to ensure
こ
the
んにち
suits,
は。
seats,
はい、こんに
and
ちは。
vehicle
ついに打ち上げなん
interactions were
です
all
ね。
ついに打
functioning
ち上げです
properly.
ね。
About
皆
30
さ
minutes
んこ
ago,
れ
the
開
team
催
closed
まだ
Dragon's
こんに
hatch
ち
with
なん
crew
なん
safely
かワクワクす
inside.
る。
So now, in, let's see, less than
ワクワクし
57
ますよ
minutes to
ね。
go until Dragon starts breathing fire, things will pick up as we get close to the go-no-go pole to arm the launch escape system and begin propellant
ク
loading.
ソウス。
The crew poll for readiness was completed
本
at
当に
60 minutes,
スマートには
and
な
we
り
did
ま
hear
したよ
those
ね。
callouts. And the Dragon poll for prop load will occur here in just about a minute at T minus 55 minutes. After that will be T minus 45 minutes will be the internal mission control Hawthorne poll, and then the launch director's poll for propellant loading. And when we get to about T minus 40 minutes, the crew access arm will retract, and the crew will get the call to close their visors and arm the launch escape system. Now, this is the automated system in place that
多
can
分
fire
乗用
the
車より
Super
は安全
Draco
なんじゃない
thrusters
でしょう
on
かね。
Dragon to quickly separate the crew from the rocket, either on the pad or during the flight on the ride uphill.
And then once we reach about T minus 35 minutes, propellant loading for the Falcon 9 will begin. Throughout the countdown, we'll be getting some pretty incredible views of the astronauts you see there on the right, making their final
見れました
preparations as well as some
もう
close-up
昨
views
日は
of
あ
the
そこま
suits.
でが限
The
界で
teams
し
have
た。
often described the suits as an extension of the Dragon spacecraft, almost a mini spacecraft inside of a spacecraft. So we're hearing that the
なんか
SpaceX teams
コ
will
ス
go
プレ
for
して
launch,
い
and
るみた
we'll
い
wait for
な
that
感じ
call
ですよ
for
ね。
propellant loading.
何かこちらも緊張しますね。よくわかってないのですが、この体勢でベルトみたいなもので体を固定しているのでしょうか？
そうですね。あ、まあ上向いてますね。
まだこんにちはの時間なのが不思議。
上向いてるので、まあでも失敗してもロケットにはいろんな対策がされてるので。もうテスラの自動運転よりは相当安全だと思います。ただ、まあ車でも自動運転普及したらだいぶ交通事故は減ると思いますけどね。
有原さん、おこんにちは。私も ISS 見てから寝ました。たまちゃん、マグロさん、うさぴょんさん、こんにちは。
まあでも全く宇宙関係フォローできてないもんですから、今どういう状況か全く分かっていません。
こんにちは、配信ありがとうございます。
はい、こんにちは。
打ち上げの準備とか始めてみます。みんなで見れるの楽しい
です。実はもう今日午後3時ぐらいから NASA の方の準備配信が始まってたんですが、この配信は打ち上げだけですね。
こんにちは。
ちなみにこれドッキングの予定っていつぐらいなんですかね。
おむつでするので快感。ツナちゃん、昨日はお疲れ様でした。
All right, and we are hearing that the Dragon teams did conduct that go poll electronically here in Mission Control Houston. The first check and the first milestone to go for prop load is underway. There's going to be another poll coming up at T-minus 45 minutes with the launch
今上に左上にカウントが出てますけど、6時48分ぐらいですかね。
over at the Kennedy Space Center. Jasmine?
本家ライブよりこっちに来ちゃった。
Joining me now is NASA's acting administrator, Steve Jerzik.
さ
Thank
と
you so
み
much
さ
for
ん、
being
こん
here
に
today.
ちはです。
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So it's a big day. The commercial crew program is in full force. Last summer we launched Demo 2 and then Crew 1 in the fall. We're gearing up to launch 4 more astronauts from American soil. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. If you would have told me a year ago that we would get 3 crew flights launched in less than a year, I would have just been ecstatic, and I am ecstatic today.
今 NASA 長官この人なんですかね。
With SpaceX, it's a lot of firsts with this flight, including the first crew rotation.
マジっすか。じゃあ明日もやらないといけないのか。
Having that 4 crew
今日はね、ちょっと雲が出ちゃってるんで、星空はやりません。
のりちゃん、うさちゃんちゃん、おこんにちは。
accelerate the research and technology development we're doing on station, both to benefit folks here on Earth as well as prepare for our Artemis missions.
Right. And with this mission today, we're looking at the space station, but of course, with Artemis, we're going even further to the moon. NASA just announced that they selected SpaceX to develop the first human lunar lander since the Apollo days. What does that mean for our sustained return to the moon?
Yeah, so that kind of completes all the systems we need to develop for the first astronaut landing on the moon under Artemis. So we have the SLS, the core stage test. Was successful a month ago at Stennis.
SLS は月に向けて今どうなってるんでしょうね。
One is on a barge and headed to Kennedy Space Center as you speak. It'll arrive here next week, and that'll mean all the components of SLS are here at Kennedy for integration for the Artemis 1 mission. Orion is ready to go for Artemis 1. The Gateway, we did a review of the Gateway the other day, and the Gateway's starting to come together. And then, of course, the last piece is the human landing system, which will transport astronauts from lunar orbit to the surface and back to lunar orbit. So it's really exciting to have the landing system in full development. It's the last piece that we need for our first Artemis missions. And later this year, hopefully, we'll conduct the first Artemis 1 mission. Which will be an uncrewed test flight around the moon.
That is exciting. You know, as we are looking at also looking even further to Mars, we made history just this week.
ところが即カプセルなので、
There's also the
そのまま
MOXIE
帰ってきま
experiment
す。
that is converting the Martian atmosphere into oxygen. So what does that mean for our hopeful one day putting people on Mars?
Yeah, so the science missions, the robotic missions are really important because they fill knowledge gaps for us that we need to fill to plan out eventually human missions to Mars. So, for example, there's a weather station on Perseverance.
火星の話してますが、
And for the first time, we're getting 5-day weather
ロボッ
forecasts
ト
from
探査が
Mars.
非常に
Right?
大
So
事ですと言っています
also, that weather station characterizes the dust, the size and properties of the dust, and that's really important for mitigating that dust in suits and systems. So it fills knowledge gaps. But MOXIE is really important, right? We generated oxygen from atmospheric CO2. And using the resources of Mars is critical because it would be very challenging to take all the oxygen and all the fuel and water that we need with us for an astronaut mission to Mars. So getting oxygen from the atmosphere and exploiting the frozen water in the regolith or Martian soil is really important because we can break that water down into oxygen and hydrogen for fuel. We can use it for potable water as well as for breathable air. So this what we call in-situ resource utilization or living off the land is a real enabler for our human missions to Mars.
まあ緊張感はあると思いますけどね。
Yeah, so we have
はい、これから行きます。
about 24 spacecraft in Earth orbit right now, looking down, making observations of the oceans, the atmosphere, the land, vegetation, what we call the cryosphere, or measuring the height of ice sheets, both in the Arctic and Antarctic. So we use the unique view from space to make global measurements over years and decades. And we use that data to conduct research and also to improve models of the Earth systems and modeling. Because if we can't predict climate using our research, we can't mitigate climate. And so that's really important that the research we do informs
酸素を作るってその火星
the most
の
effective policies
物
to
質だ
mitigate
けでっ
climate
てこ
change,
とで
which
す
is
か？
really, really important, not only for the U.S. but for the world. Station, on ISS, we also have instruments mounted externally on ISS. It's in a unique orbit, an inclined orbit that's different from most of our Earth orbiting spacecraft that we find, which are in a polar orbit. And for certain types of instruments, that orbit is very advantageous. It gives us a lot of coverage and a unique perspective. And so we're using ISS more and more as an Earth observation platform. So, you know, both with both with the research we do at NASA,
皆
with our other
様、
government
こんにちは。
partners through the
急い
US
で帰
Global
宅、
Change
す
Research
でに
Program,
配信
and
始
also
ま
in
ってま
collaboration
す
with our
ね。
international partners.
よろしくお願い
We're
し
going
ま
to
す。
continue to make those observations, do that
ゆか
research,
ちゃ
and
ん、こ
improve
んに
our
ちはで
ability
す。こんにちは。
predict climate
酸
change.
素を
Right,
作
but we
る
are making
けど
progress
するん
across
だ
the
ろ。
universe.
は
NASA
るこ
Acting
さん、
Administrator
う
Steve
ちも
Joseph,
タケノ
thank
コ
you
ご
so much
飯
for
よ。
joining us
宇
today.
宙に持って
Now
行
we're
っ
going to
てあ
take
げ
it
た
back to
い。
John and
ル
hop
ナ
on
ち
as
ゃん、
action
酸
begins to
素
pick
の
up
様
on
子
the pad.
私もすごいと思いました。
なぜ星出さんを映さないの？
Thanks, Jasmine. It's
皆
just
様
inside
こんばん
46 and
は。
a half minutes
はい、
to
こんばんは。
launch. The SpaceX launch team, they're finishing their final review of data from checkouts of Falcon 9 over the last hour. The launch director is about to poll the
歌
team
子
for
ちゃん、
readiness, both
よ
to
ろし
load
くで
propellant
す。
and to launch.
何
This
時
will be
に
the
旅
last
立つ
poll
のか
before
な？
liftoff.
スケ
The
ジュール
7
派？
SpaceX
こ
engineers
2ヶ月
indicate
し
they
て
are
酸
go
素
by
作ったん
electronically
だっ
voting
け？
on an online countdown procedure. We won't hear a verbal poll, something folks may remember from the earlier days of
CO2 を分
launch
解し
and
て
movies like Apollo
酸素を
13.
作ったんですか？
The launch director is also checking with Dragon mission director and the NASA launch manager to make sure everyone is ready to go. Meanwhile, on the Dragon spacecraft, on the screen you can see the
そんなに
crew
二酸化
armed
炭素濃
with
度って
service
高いんです
instructions.
か？
タバコちゃ
The
ん、
crew is
よろ
on
しく
board
です。
Dragon, waiting for next instructions, which will be to stow the arm for launch and to arm the launch escape system. Once the launch
季節
director
ね、
gives final
タケノコ
instructions
ご
to the
飯
launch team, which
食べ
should be
たい。
coming up in about
こ
30
こさん、
seconds,
若葉
the
子
crew
さん
arm
のこん
sequence
ばん
will
は
be
で
armed
す。
and
あと
initiated. We
46
should get a
分。
good view
あ
of
と
the
46
Axis
分
arm
です
as
ね。
it swings away from the capsule, taking about 2 minutes to move out of the way. Now the range continues to be go for launch.
酸
They're
素作れ
monitoring
る
the
って
area around the
長
pad
い宇
as
宙
well as
船の
air
旅
and
ができ
sea
ました
space
ね。
around the flight corridor.
まあ問題水
And
な
on
ん
the
です
weather
が
front,、the weather officer gave a fantastic at the T-minus 1 hour briefing. The winds for all conditions of flight, liftoff, contingencies, getting into space, everything looks good both at ground level and upper altitude. So right now we're just waiting to listen to the SpaceX launch director give the
火星で酸
poll
素作れたら
and then
人
also
類スメルに作るの
give
かな？
the instructions
タ
to
ケ
the
ノ
team
コご
and
飯
move
すみ
into
ません。
retracting the
食べ
crew
たい
access
よ。
arms. So we're going to
お
listen
皿
for a
ね。
minute to the countdown now.
まあ、地球には植物があるのであんまり二酸化炭素から酸素にっていう考え方はありませんですよね。
Poll is complete and team is ready for propellant load and crew access arm retract. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they'll approve aborting the launch auto sequence and proceed into launch abort. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the countdown, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence.
あ、ちょっと窓を閉め
Operators
て
advise
くだ
launch
さい。
director whether structural breakup or fire
どうぞいらっ
is
しゃ
imminent
い。
or Dragon manual escape flight rules. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators will man their post while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personnel safety is threatened, evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
じゃ、あれは酸素を分解する機械だったんだね。二酸化炭素以外にも大気が薄いので放射線の問題があるけどね。こんにちは、月の土佐煮をしてました。今朝2時殺し後山の川夢うつつでカロンさんや女神が微笑んで、スパチャの声で我に帰りました。感激の天の川昼間また神秘の世界に浸りました。大成功、登録者210人
いよいよオンボード
お疲れ様でした。また、貴重な配信ありがとう。です。
外れますね。
玉屋さん、まきこさん、こんにちは。たまちゃん行きたい。
ちょっとどうしようかな。今日棒読みちゃんもうちょっと静かにしてもらえますか。
There you see a live view of the crew access arm retracting away from Crew Dragon in preparation for launch. The countdown clock continues to tick, and we're now at T-minus 42 minutes and 33 seconds. We're standing by for the completion of the crew access retraction. This is one of the last major visual milestones that we'll see in preparation for liftoff. Shortly thereafter, we should hear the call out that the launch escape system is armed, and from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 prop load has started, which is one of my favorite milestones of the launch countdown.
We just saw a beautiful shot from inside the white room as the crew arm was moving away. There it is. The capsule, you can just barely see it in the corner now of that opening where that is where the side hatch was, where the astronauts
これはこっちのカメラ側の方が移動してますね。
to swing away from the Falcon 9 rocket and Crew Dragon Endeavour in
普通の
preparation
なん
for
か
launch. That is a
飛行
really
機の
cool angle.
搭乗路みたいな感じになってますが。
And Tracy, as we're watching the crew arm still retracting here, we are about to have the International Space Station fly over us, right?
We are, yes, here at KSC, Kennedy Space Center. It looks like in another minute, to the southeast, traveling across east-northeast, the station should be visible overhead.
Crew access arm retraction complete.
Now we just heard confirmation that the crew access arm is done retracting.
Up next, we'll expect to hear a call to arm the launch escape system.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for Section 7. Close visors and arm launch escape.
はい、こんにちは。
ロケット白くてかっこいいな。
Copy. SpaceX Endeavour visors are down.
Copy, visors down.
Okay, so the crew there reporting that they have closed and locked their visors in place in preparation for the launch escape system arming. The launch escape system is a critical safety feature. This is something that the shuttle did not have. We take very seriously the fact that the astronauts' lives are in our hands and take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options and has an escape in the worst of scenarios. So this is simply a path to safety for the crew in the event that they need to depart the pad in an emergency, and also applies to aborting the mission even after liftoff and through ascent.
And the Crew Dragon Endeavour actually has an enhanced abort capability now. That was one of the improvements made to this capsule after Demo 2, and it increased the propulsion system on Dragon.
Launch escape system is verified armed.
Okay, so that was confirmation that the launch escape system is armed, and so that is what we have to hear before fueling on the Falcon 9 rocket can begin. So we are about just under 4 minutes away from that milestone. But again, we were saying the propulsion system. Oh, there's a shot of the space station. There it is.
あ、スペースステーションだっ
Everybody
て。
wave.
ISS がちょうど上を通り
I
かかっ
think
て
they're
る。
watching right now. So
They are, you know they are.
yeah, hi guys.
Hi.
We see you. So that's super cool. But yeah, the abort system, it's been improved by about 10%. That's the Super Draco thrusters. There's 8 of them built directly into the Crew Dragon, and so that actually allowed for a wider
今ちょうど
margin
上
in
空を
terms
ISS
of
が通り
wind
かかったようで
speeds.
す。
So there's a greater
まあ今そ
opportunities
この ISS に
for
向けて
launch.
飛んでいくの
But
で
weather not looking like much of a concern at all today. In fact, last we heard there's
ちょうど
less
そういう
than
タイミングを
5%
狙ってい
chance
る
of
とは思うんで
violation.
すが。
So more than 95% go conditions, which is great.
Pretty rare for launches from here.
え、でもまだ1時
And
間あ
that
るから
launch
な。
escape system, how that works is once the fueling begins at T-minus 35 minutes, if
まあ
there's
次の
any
周
kind
回
of
ですかね。
emergency, Crew Dragon can launch itself off the top of the Falcon 9 rocket, and then it would splash down under parachutes off the coast in the Atlantic, and we have rescue teams pre-positioned in the event of an emergency. If that happens, which is highly unlikely, but it's something the NASA and SpaceX and Department of Defense teams practice for extensively. That launch escape system is also equipped to perform an abort after liftoff. We would call that an in-flight launch escape, and that can happen at any point throughout the ascent trajectory.
Yeah, we actually tested this launch escape system in multiple ways. We performed a pad abort test where a Dragon capsule was on the pad and simulated an abort where it took off like a rocket like you've never seen and deployed parachutes and splashdown.
野口さんは映像を見てますね、ISS で。
We also conducted an in-flight abort test, which was incredible to witness. I mean, it was a test unlike any other that we'd performed before, and where we launched a Falcon 9 rocket with a Dragon on top. And about 100 seconds into flight, simulated an anomaly. Dragon took off and deployed parachutes, splashed down, and so this is a system that we have tested, but never expect to utilize.
でまあ明日の6時ぐらいにドッキングっていうことらしいんで、
if you're wondering why it looks a little dirty, that is actually soot that was left from re-entry after its last mission. This particular booster supported the
次の周回というか下から近づいていったら追いつく感じになるのかな。
We have, there we can see a photo of our Crew 2 astronauts. Actually, they're holding up their fingers because they have soot. They signed their initials, their names into the soot there in the background. So I've said before, I love the human spaceflight traditions that we have, and I think this is a new one. Tracy, you
これ
said
で
it earlier.
ISS 内部でコロナ大発生なんてことにならなきゃいいんですよ。そっちの方が怖いな。
Yeah, Toma, they were answering questions about it, and he started to say we carved our initials, and he quickly stopped himself. No, we didn't carve anything into the Falcon 9. We traced our initials in the side of the rocket, and so you could see closely in that photo. If you look, you could see the initials of each astronaut. So that's really cool and something that we look forward to seeing on future reused boosters. This one is set to land.
Load has started.
Okay, we just heard confirmation that fueling has begun on the Falcon 9 rocket.
今燃料注入が始まったようですね。
And this first stage booster is set to land on a SpaceX drone ship at sea after liftoff.
どうもできんやろうね。
まあもう閉鎖空間なんでみんな一人、まあ相当調べてはいると思うんですけど。
And the first for 2021. Today begins the next 6-month
かといっ
rotation
てじゃ
mission
あ
to the International Space Station.
イ
The
ンフ
launch
ルとか
escape
も
system is armed, which happened
や
just
ばいですから
before
ね。
fueling began at T-35 minutes. The Dragon capsule was loaded with propellants about a week and a half ago, just a few miles down the road at what we call Dragon Land.
基本的に宇宙飛行士は2週間以上隔離されますんで、打ち上げ前に。
Yeah, so for that fuel, we use monomethylhydrazine or MMH and nitrogen tetroxide or NTO for the
はい、こんばんは。
oxidizer. Together, these two propellants feed the Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit, as well as the 8 Super Draco engines that would power the launch escape system in an abort scenario.
And again, now that the fueling is underway on Falcon 9, that means the 8 Super Draco engines built directly into
それは
Crew Dragon are ready, if
コロナ
needed,
の時で
to
なく
launch the
ても相
capsule
当気を
off
使って
of
ま
the
すんで
Falcon 9 rocket in an instant should there be any kind of emergency associated with the rocket or the launch pad. The NASA and SpaceX teams have trained extensively for exactly that type of contingency, along with the Department of Defense Detachment 3, who does a fantastic job in those training scenarios. Now over to
まあそうは言
SpaceX
っても
headquarters in
やばいってな
Hawthorne
ったら
for an
映画みたい
operations
に即
update.
脱
John?
出できるわけじゃないので。
Well, we
は
are
い、こんにち
counting
は。
down those final minutes, and everything's still looking good for Falcon 9 and Dragon for an on-time launch just under 33 minutes from now. Falcon 9 did begin propellant loading just a couple of minutes ago. We heard it. Now, the first and second stages of Falcon 9 are each loaded with 2
はい、こん
liquid
ばんは。
propellants. One is fuel. That's loaded into the tank at the bottom of each stage. The other is an oxidizer, and that goes obviously into the tank at the top of each stage. Now, the fuel that we use to power the Merlin engines is a refined kerosene called
まあ本当にでも
RP1.
宇宙服に
And the
着せられ
oxidizer
て
loaded on each
隔離される
stage
かもしれない
is
ですね。
densified liquid oxygen called LOX.
かといっても判明した時点で全員感染の疑いがあるので、みんな帰ってきてもらうしかないですよね。
Now to ignite the fuel and oxidizer in the Merlin rocket engine, we use an ignition fluid called T-tub. When T-tub comes in contact with oxygen, it burns, and it gives off a green-colored flame. Now once we've got the flame going, we add the kerosene fuel into the Merlin chamber, and the engine ramps up to full power. You might see the green flash just as the second stage engine ignites following stage separation. Now currently we've just begun. The first stage fuel tank is about right now a little under 10% full. The first stage is the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle you see on your screen. The white cylinder topped off by the black cylinder. That makes up the first stage. And then the top 1/3 underneath the Dragon capsule, that's our second stage. Now at this time, the second stage fuel tank is about 8% full. Now the fuel tank, if you were to zoom in, that's where the NASA meatball logo is positioned. And right above it, you can just make out the red NASA worm logo, and that's where the liquid oxygen tank is on the second stage. And there's a closer view. Now in addition to loading the fuel, we're also loading oxygen, the liquid oxygen, onto the first stage. We won't start liquid oxygen loading on the second stage until T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds. And liquid oxygen will continue loading on both stages until the last few minutes of the countdown. Helium loading into pressure vessels is also underway. We use that to pressurize the tanks in flight as the propellant is pulled out by the Merlin turbopumps. On board the Dragon spacecraft, you can see here in a close-up, the astronauts are monitoring systems while the propellant is loaded into the Falcon 9. The crew training in the simulator included playback of sounds that we've recorded in the Dragon capsule during recent flights. So they get an idea what all that hissing and popping and banging is from the vent valves and the pressurization systems.
そうですね。
Now
上
the
から
range
見たら新
continues
幹
to
線みたい
report
な。
no problems. They are go to support launch. And the weather also looks good. I mentioned the T-minus 1 hour briefing. We called it fantastic. Currently, we don't have anything that we are tracking that could be a concern. We have a very small possibility of a pop-up rain shower, but nothing showing up. So right now, 29 minutes, 40 seconds ago, it looks like we've got good weather.
SpaceX って
Now, as a
4分前ホールド
reminder,
とかってあるんでした
today
っ
we
け？
have an instantaneous launch window. So at this point, if we hear a hold for any reason, we'll have to
い
stand
や、
down
そういえ
and
ばク
target
ル
our
ードラゴン
backup
の打
launch
ち上げ生で見
opportunity
るの初め
coming
てか
in
も。
3 days. So right now, let's turn it back over to Jesse and Gary for an overview of events that are going to happen after the liftoff of Falcon 9.
Great news, John. For Crew 2, the astronauts' flight to station will take about 23 hours, and their journey will be fairly similar to the trip Crew 1 made in November of last year.
All right, as we wait T0 in just about 29 minutes, the ground operations teams are doing a series of systems checks to make sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. You're looking at a live view of our teams at the Cape as they prepare for liftoff. As we wait for the launch clock to hit 0, we wanted to give you an overview of what the ascent portion of the mission will look like.
Once
こ
we
の
hit
管制室っ
T0 and a
て
successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9
あ
and
のガラ
Dragon
ス
lift off
の
from
向こう
historic
は
launch
何
pad
があるんでしたっ
39A
け？
and
工場
make
があ
their
るんでしたっ
ascent.
け？
At about 50 seconds into the flight, Falcon 9 engines will throttle up to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as max Q.
はい、こん
It's
ばんは。
worth noting that once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic.
Once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our 9 Merlin engines again. And from there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that will happen in rapid succession.
First
私なんか3日後ぐらいにやっとニュースで見ましたけ
This is
ど、
where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut off in preparation for stage separation, which is our second event. This is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event, SES-1, or second stage engine start number 1, is where the MVAC engine lights up and propels the second stage along with our Crew 2 astronauts to orbit.
As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the 9 M1D engines will reignite and then shut down. And this helps to slow the stage down in preparation for entry back into the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
While the first stage is heading back to Earth, the second stage will cut off its one Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we'll wait for confirmation of a good orbital insertion.
About 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn is just a single engine burn, powerful enough to bring the vehicle speed down rapidly
まあ
in
もうすっ
order
かり
to
あれですよ
land
ね。
on
こ
the
れ
drone ship
戻ってく
about
るのも
9.5 minutes into
お
the
なじ
mission.
みになってしまいまして。
While Falcon 9 first stage is landing, Dragon is preparing to separate from the second stage. At about 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we should have a great view of Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage. Once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out its Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure Dragon continues to increase separation distance from the second stage. It's worth noting that these are not the Super Draco engines that would be used during an abort scenario.
About 40 seconds after separation,
再利用で
Dragon's
しょうね。
nose cone deploy
今回どうなん
sequence
ですか
will begin. It will take roughly 4 minutes for the nose cone hooks to unlatch and open,
むしろ
exposing its
再利用品の方
guidance
が安全性
controls,
が
or what
高
we
い
call
高いと思うんです
GNC,
よね。
that will help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station.
And lastly, once the nose cone is deployed, the remaining Draco thrusters on the forward bulkhead will be checked. From there, over the next 23 plus hours, Dragon will be in its rendezvous and approach phases, undergoing a number of phasing burns as it makes its way to station. All of that will be coming up soon. For now, let's check back in with Courtney in Mission Control Houston. Courtney.
Thanks, Gary. The space station team here in Houston is focused, and the critical systems on the station continue to function normally. The teams have verified the command path
ローンチアメリカをすごいアピールしてますね。
from the ground through our constellation of communication satellites to the station. Everything is
まあ少なくとも
nominal, and the
私
station
が
will be ready to receive Dragon
や
tomorrow.
っていた
Once the crew arrives at
8
the
年間
station,
ぐらい
they'll
は
join Expedition
ずっ
65.
とロシア
While
から
on
の
board, their official
打ち上げでしたか
designation
らね。
will be flight engineers, except for Jaxa's Aki Hoshide, who will take command of the space station from NASA's Shannon Walker just before Crew 1 comes home. He'll be the station commander until the fall, when he'll hand the reins to European Space Agency Thomas Pesquet for the final part of their mission. Flight Director Paul Kanya is on console now, leading flight controllers in Houston for launch, and Flight Director Scott Stover will lead teams for docking tomorrow.
お疲れ様で
Just
す。
a reminder that a launch today will take about 23 and a half hours to get to station, with a docking to the Node 2 forward port scheduled tomorrow at 4:10 a.m. Central. Once Dragon is docked to the station, the team here in Houston will assist Dragon and space station astronauts with leak checks as they will work to open hatches on both Dragon and
黒いのが
the
安か
inside
った
of
ん
the
じゃないでしょ
station's
うかね。
pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch open to take place approximately 2 hours after docking. That's it for us here in Mission Control Houston. I'll send it back over to the team in Florida. Marie?
ヒューストンからお送りいたしました。
All right, thanks, Courtney. You are looking live at the Falcon 9 rocket
いや、
and
ロシア
SpaceX
は
Crew Dragon, and we can see
ソ
liquid
ユーズ使い
oxygen
ますん
venting
で。
off the rocket. That is normal and expected. It is now T-minus 23 minutes, 50 seconds and counting from the third astronaut launch from U.S. soil in the past year, and the first with 2 international partners aboard. Commander Shane Kimbrough, pilot Megan MacArthur, and mission specialist Thomas Pesquet and Aki Hoshide are strapped into their seats inside the Crew Dragon Endeavour on top. There's an inside view. We can see them live as the Falcon 9 rocket fueling operation is well underway now. The launch escape system is armed, and that means the Crew Dragon is prepared to launch itself away from the Falcon 9 rocket in case of an emergency on the pad or after liftoff. So far, operations look and sound as expected, and we are counting down to liftoff at 5:49 Eastern Time.
This mission is the continuation of rotational
あと
crew flights to the
22分
International
です。
Space Station from U.S. soil on private rockets and spacecraft. This wouldn't have been possible without the success of the NASA SpaceX Demo 2 test flight last year and the safe delivery of the Crew 1 astronauts to the space
これクルー
station
ドラ
last
ゴンって
fall
何
for
回
a
目
long duration mission. Those Crew 1 astronauts are preparing to return to Earth shortly after Crew 2 arrives at station.
And this will be the first time we'll see 2 Crew Dragons dock to the space station at the same time. Crew 1's Resilience and Crew 2's Endeavor that's on the launch pad right now.
With the arrival of the Crew 2 team, I believe that'll bring the head count on station to 11 people. And as much as I love camping, that does sound like it would be a little crowded up there.
Yeah, you know, you counted 11 people on board the station, 9 of them in the U.S. segment. We've got 4 crew quarters, which are basically crew bedrooms. We've got both commanders of the Dragons sleeping in their vehicles. That leaves 3 people needing a place to sleep. That's Suichi, Shannon, and Victor. They'll be in the gym, the Columbus, and the airlock, respectively. So you could say it's quite a full house. They'll be camping out, rolling out their sleeping bags on rack fronts. So it'll be
what a great benefit to being commander. You have your own private
with
windows. Yeah, it's a nice place to be.
Yeah, and that's honestly the window shots that we have been receiving from the crew have been one of my favorite things from the Crew 1 team up there, and even Bob and Doug whenever they were up there as well. Just the view outside of the Crew Dragon window. It's actually my phone background right now. And it's just incredible, and I love that we get to that they share their perspective with us.
そうですね。多分ロシアは売ると思いますよね。
above.
Let's give you a quick recap of who the astronauts are sitting inside the capsule here in the foreground. Sitting closest to the front of your screen is Commander Shane Kimbrough. He is commanding the Crew Dragon Endeavor today, and he is a native of Texas, making his 3rd trip to space. The retired U.S. Army colonel first launched aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavor on STS-126, then aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft for expeditions 49 and 50. Kimbrough has spent a total of 189 days in space and performed 6 spacewalks.
Pilot Megan MacArthur will be making her 2nd trip to space, but her first to the space station. She was born in Honolulu, but she was born in Honolulu.
ロシアはね、昔から商用打ち上げ、ソユーズの席を昔から売ってるんですよ。
Space Shuttle Atlantis on STS-125, the final servicing mission of the Hubble Space Telescope. She operated the shuttle robotic arm over the course of 12 days and 21 hours, capturing the telescope and throughout 5 spacewalks to lengthen the telescope's life.
And mission specialist Aki Hoshide is
3回目です
embarking
か
on his 3rd space flight today. The Jaxa astronaut from Tokyo previously flew on STS-124 aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery to deliver and install Japan's science laboratory Kibo. He also flew aboard the Russian Soyuz on expeditions 32 and 33 for a 124-day visit to the space station.
And in the far corner of your screen is mission specialist Thomas Pesquet. He will be making his 2nd trip to space. Born in Rouen, France, Pesquet first flew to space on the Russian Soyuz as a flight engineer for expeditions 50 and 51. In that time, he worked on more than 50 different experiments and performed 2 spacewalks with Kimbrough to maintain the space station. He has logged 197 days in space. Pesquet will be the first European to fly in Crew Dragon, and it will be the first time a European astronaut has launched from America in more than a decade.
Each of these 4 crew members will join Expedition 65 once they arrive at the International Space Station, with Aki Hoshide taking over as commander of the station right before Crew 1 departs.
And as we're looking at a live view of the pad, again, fueling is underway. We heard a call out during those bio recaps that the RP-1 load is complete on the 2nd stage. And we have a really special treat if we could take a view of Bob Benkin's spacesuit. We have that in studio. That is the actual spacesuit worn by Bob Benkin during the
これも
demo
本当
to
になんか
test
ペラッ
flight,
ペラな
and you can
感
see the
じ
photo
が
of
確
his
かに
wife, Megan MacArthur, in the photo there, and she is sitting in the same spacecraft in the same seat that Bob did almost a year ago on the Demo 2 mission. Megan is the pilot for this mission. There's a shot of Bob's
そうなんで
spacesuit
す
on the
ね。
left and Doug Hurley's spacesuit on the right. This was a couple days ago during the pre-launch news conference.
まあいやその
So
辺は
again,
ね
looking
シビ
live
ア
at the
な
pad, Falcon 9 will have
オーダーがあったんだ
1.7
と思い
million
ますよ。
pounds of thrust at
表には
liftoff,
絶
and
対出さないでしょうけど。
we've heard it sounds like a gorilla sitting on your chest. Would you say that's accurate, Tracy?
Yeah, yeah. I've never had actually a gorilla on my chest, but I imagine that
でも日本人
one
が
would
連
be
続して
that
乗ってる
heavy.
って素晴らしいですよ
The
ね。
feeling that you have in your chest is pretty significant.
Once again, the white cloud that we see there is expected, totally normal. That's just the liquid oxygen vaporizing essentially as it comes into contact with this humid Florida air. As a point of reference, the liquid oxygen that we load on board Falcon 9 is super chilled to help densify that liquid oxygen. When I say super chilled, I mean really, really cold. We're talking like negative 336 degrees. So, of course, whenever it comes into
今非常
ambient
に
air,
冷たい燃料を
it
入れてる
will
ので
turn into its gaseous state.
燃料っていうか酸化剤ですが冷たいので
Okay, and there we just heard the call out that second stage LOX load has just begun.
And so the mission teams that we've seen in control rooms from Kennedy Space Center to Houston to Hawthorne are all laser focused on keeping this crew safe from this point and all the way to the space station and back home in 6 months. We had a chance to ask about their mindset right now from a couple of their leaders.
There's a
まあ
very
この
delicate
燃料の入れ
dance
方も
between
結
the
構
weather, normally the weather and the operations, and you know, making sure all these complex systems are working
飲んでください
correctly together. And what is really important is just how calmly, quietly,
そうですね
efficiently the team's working through every single one of those things. It's why we train.
People are very passionate about this program, as am I, and they know the consequences of what they're doing. They know that the crew's lives depend on what they're doing. This human spaceflight endeavor requires diligence every day on the job, and I think our team knows that.
I definitely feel like those crew members are in our hands, and we need to be there, thinking straight, making sure we're making the
まあ
right
深海に
decisions
潜るわけじ
so
ゃな
that
いの
we're
で
getting that crew safely to the International Space Station.
And that was Kathy Leaders and Steve Stitch,
そう断熱性とかは多
who've
分
been in charge
技
of the
術
NASA
が
team for much of the
マ
life
テリア
of the
ル技
commercial
術が
crew
進歩して
program
るの
and
で
have worked very
だんだん
closely
薄くは
with the
できる
folks
よう
on
に
the
なってると思うん
SpaceX
ですよ
side
ね。
who have gotten to know these astronauts on a personal level and have taken such care in all of the checkouts and the paranoia
そうですね。
reviews, as they're called, to make sure that they're constantly looking for problems to uncover, to make sure that every leaf, every stone is unturned to make this flight as safe as possible for the crew. Again, it is now T-minus 14 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Liftoff will be about 1 hour before sunrise here on Florida's Space Coast, and if we're lucky, we may see a beautiful
で
contrail
もま
of
だ
first light at the time of launch at
この宇宙
5:49
服って
and 2
弁当箱を
seconds
抱えてい
Eastern
かないんで
time.
すか
The space station will be flying 258 miles over the Indian Ocean south of Sri Lanka. And now with T-minus 13 minutes, 50 seconds and counting, we want to focus on the pad as we proceed through the final stretch of the countdown. We will turn it over to Hawthorne to take us through launch at 5:49 this morning. John?
We're inside T-minus 14 minutes. Everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon, 49 minutes and 2 seconds after the hour. Falcon 9 began propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. Loading of the RP-1 fuel onto Stage 2 is complete. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're over half full, and it'll finish at T-minus 6 minutes. The densified liquid oxygen loading is continuing on the first stage, and we began loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage a few minutes ago. The liquid oxygen loading will wrap up T-minus 3 minutes on the first stage, about T-minus 2 minutes on the second stage. Checkouts of the thrust vector controllers, what we call TVC wiggles, are coming up, along with throttle valve checkouts on the engines. That's where we move the engines a little bit, make sure the hydraulics are ready to go. Currently, the range is go, ready to support, working no issues. And we continue to have good weather both at the launch pad
は
and
い、
ground
今のところ
level
問題な
and
く
the
天
upper
気も
altitude winds and
上々という
downrange
こと
at
で
the
もう打ち上が
contingency
りますね
landing。sites. On the Dragon spacecraft, the Dragon mission director and team, they're reporting no issues. Their communication
ね、
checkouts
久し
are
ぶりです。と
complete.
っても久しぶり
The
です。
crew access arm
まさ
is
か見られると
retracted
は
as
私
you
も
see
思い
on
ま
your
せんでした。
monitors away from the
野
vehicle.
口さんの打ち上げが見られなか
Launch
ったの
escape system is
は
armed.
非常に悲
The
しい
crew
で
is
す。
strapped in and ready to go. Final instructions to the crew will be coming at T-minus 10 minutes. They'll configure their displays for launch. That'll give them insight into how the launch is proceeding, and it provides constant updates on
ソ
vehicle
ユー
health.
ズ
And
も
for Dragon at T-minus 5 minutes,
シャトル
we'll
も
hear it enter terminal count as they transition to internal power.
どっち
Now
の
we're
宇
going to
宙
hear
服、
continued
船内
callouts
服
on the
も
countdown net as we
手持
get
ち
close to
の
T-minus 0 and to the liftoff. Now, Gary, we talked about the
酸
asset
素供
sequence
給
of
装置
events
を
that are coming up here. You and
手に
Jesse
抱え
went through
て
that a little while
登場
ago.
するんです
But
が
we're also going to have abort modes. Can you explain a little bit about what the abort mode callouts are that we might hear?
That's right, John. We're continuing to track that the Falcon 9 and Dragon are looking good for launch, but just in case anything were to happen, Dragon is fully prepared to initiate an abort and use those Super Draco engines to escape from a speeding Falcon 9. On the way uphill, you'll hear a series of letter and number combinations. Those will denote the stage that the rocket is on and the abort zone that we're on as well. On first stage, you'll hear abort zones A and B. That will cover the Falcon 9's ascent up to about the northern border of North Carolina, about 7.5 to 8 miles in altitude. And the stage 2 will have stage 2A through E. Mostly it will be stage A, or stage 2A abort zone, but towards the end of the 6 minutes that stage 2 will be firing, you'll hear the numbers start going out from B
でも
to
これ
E,
から
with
あれ
E
な
being
どうなの
an
かな
abort to
なん
orbit.
か採用されてい
All
っ
of
たりす
these
るんですかね
capabilities enabled on the
社外
Dragon
品が
spacecraft to make sure that the crew will be delivered safely into orbit. Inside 10 minutes and 30 seconds, we should be hearing some final status, maybe a good luck and Godspeed from some of the ground teams here, ensuring that the crew is ready to go. That Falcon 9, Dragon, and all the support teams are ready for
酸
launch.
素供給装置なのかフィルターなのか分かりませんけどまあでもアボートタワーがついてるので非常に安心は安心ですよねスペースシャトルは脱出装置がなかったので多分シャトルの時の緊張感よりはだいぶマシだと思います
SpaceX copies. Shane, Megan, Aki, Tama.
船内は1気圧なんじゃないですか
Once again, and truly honored to have you all at the helm. It's been a pleasure training alongside you ahead of this historic launch. We wish you a great mission, good luck, and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Chad, Christian, Frank, and all the teams who got our crew and vehicle ready for this mission.
なぜか星出さんはカメラのこっち側にいるんですって星出さんをなぜ映さないんでしょうか
Our crew is flying astronauts from NASA, ESA, and Jaxa, which hasn't happened in over 20 years. We're excited to represent our nations, agencies, and all of humanity. Off the Earth, for the Earth, Endeavor is ready to go.
お久しぶりです。お久しぶりでもないような気がするんですが、ガッツポーズで。
All right, some celebratory handshakes from inside the Crew Dragon. That was the voice of the Corps, Chad Healy, here in Mission Control Hawthorne. Next series of events, John, will be the engine chill. Everything's looking good so far.
Yeah, it is. We're actually watching the fuel trim valves on the Merlin 1D engines going through some checkouts right now. As you said, at T-minus 7 minutes, we're going to start a sequence of events that begins with opening the pre-valves. Currently, the liquid oxygen, the kerosene fuel on the Falcon 9 first, second stages is separated from the Merlin engines. T-minus 7 minutes, just over a minute from now, we open the pre-valves, That allows propellant down to the top of the engine or the inlet to the turbo
まあまだ
pumps.
3回目ですから
At the same
ね。
time, we open up bleed valves on the turbo pumps, and that allows a little bit of that densified ultra-cold liquid oxygen to flow through the pump and to chill down the liquid
逆カ
oxygen.
メラも見せてほしいで
That
すよ
way, when
ね。
we
多
get
分
to
反対側にもカメ
T-2
ラついてると
seconds
思うん
and
で
we
すが。
spin the pumps up and everything comes to full power, we're not pulling very cold liquid oxygen through a warm pump. So
あ
as
と
that
7分で
cools
打ち
it
上げ
down
です。
right now, that'll get it ready for that ignition sequence in the last couple of seconds.
ドキドキワクワク。
So we should hear that call out that the stage 1 engine chill has started. You'll also hear in flight, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes into flight, MVAC chill has begun. That's also a repeat sequence there, where we open the bleed valve and begin chilling that engine one more time before it lights after stage separation.
船の中、すっきりしてて、なんだかおしゃれ。
いや本当にねこれ広いんで
Right
す
now
よ
we're
ね。
waiting to see the pre-valves come open
本
and
当
the chill
本来7
begin.
人乗れる
コンサートのステージ前みたいな
宇宙船なので、
握手笑
すっごいスカスカなんですよ。
お回ししている最中。
Yep, and there's the call out. We've got indication pre-valves coming open on the engines. And we have begun to chill in the Merlin engines for flight.
That's right, John. Now inside 6 minutes, 40 seconds. RP-1 rocket-grade kerosene is completely filled in the second stage.
見てる方もドキドキワク
We're
ワクです
anticipating about
ね。
30 more seconds
これ
for the
あれ
first
ですね
stage
打ち上げ
to be
直前
filled
ま
with
で
that
角
RP-1
ごと射出さ
refined
れる仕
kerosene.
様だったかと。スタイリッシュになったのハイロンの趣味です。多分、笑。
The liquid oxygen will continue to flow through the first and second stages up to the final minutes before
この
T0.
人たち夏用の宇宙服ですか？
そうですね夏服
All right,
です。
confirmation. We have 100% fill of RP-1 on both the
まあ、打
first
ち上げ
and
直前
second
まで
stages.
オ
6
ン
minutes
ボー
to
ド
go
ブリッ
until
ジ
an
が離れ
instantaneous
ません
launch
ね。
window today.
緊急のために近くに
The
残
next
してあります。
milestone will be Dragon to transition to configure for
多分打
terminal
ち上げ
count.
寸前になっ
This
た
time,
ら
terminal count, the Dragon will be on
これ
internal
退避す
power,
ると
no
思うんですよ。
longer relying on the lines from the ground.
打ち上げ、お祈りしてます。頑張
And
って。
from there, the Falcon 9 propellant tanks will pressurize for strong back retract. That'll be another visual milestone. The clamps just below
まあ
the
どっちかという
Dragon's
とロシア
pressurized
の
trunk
宇宙船の方が
The strong
自動
back
化されてる
back just 2 degrees.
イメージがありますね。
Then right after liftoff, back to 45 degrees.
星出さんはい一
Again,
番
RP-1
左
kerosene, both on the first and second stages.
あと5分。
あと5分
Liquid
ですね。
oxygen continues to flow through on the first and second stages. That very
ま
densified,
あちょっと
very
表情
cold
がやっ
liquid
ぱり
oxygen.
硬くはなってきてますね。
Dragon has transitioned
まあいけるか、まあいけるか死ぬかなんで。
いるはないと思います。
Falcon 9 propellant tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
緊張感ありますよ
All
ね。
right, John, good calls and right on time.
安
Dragon is
全
now on
性は
internal
高い
power.
とは分かっていてもやっぱり
頼むでほんま。
Okay, next major
高い
event
とは分
coming
かっ
up
てい
is
て
going
も
to be opening the clamp arms around the second stage in preparation for retracting the strong back away from the vehicle to get ready for liftoff.
Strong back is retracting.
We heard the call out. Strong back is beginning to retract. We're into the automated sequence. We should see the clamp arms that are just visible there around the top of the second stage begin to open
まあ
up.
船長って言ってもあれですよね
Once they are
ロケット
open,
の船長じゃない
then
で
the
すから
strong
ね。
back will begin to move away from the Falcon 9.
やっぱり緊張しますよね。
そしたらちょっと棒読みちゃんの音が消えます。
Watching the sequence, a nice view from up on top of the fixed service structure. The arms are opening. And we're beginning to
かなり激
recline
しく
away from the Falcon 9. We'll move the strong back 2 degrees away from the Falcon
これ
9.
打ち上げ
That'll
直
get it
前ま
ready
で
for liftoff. And at T0, when the flight
液体酸素
computer
を注入
commands
し続
liftoff,
けますんで
the hydraulics on the strong back will pull it to a position 45 degrees
さあ
away from the Falcon 9,
いよいよ
giving it
タワー
the
が
clearance for launch.
動きそうですね。
So right now, the strong back is moving away. Everything proceeding nominally.
あと3分です。
It's great to to hear, John. We're also anxiously awaiting the liquid oxygen complete on the first stage. Should hear that call very shortly.
これ打ち上げ直前になったらこの煙がピタッと止まりますんで。
Dragon has transitioned to terminal count and is on internal power.
今内部電源に切り替わります。
Okay, we've heard the call out. Stage 1 LOX load is complete. We're loading liquid oxygen on the second stage for about another 30 seconds or so. Once we get the liquid oxygen load complete on the second stage, the propellant line that runs up the side of the strong back that carries liquid oxygen will vent that line down to make sure there's no liquid in it when we get to liftoff. When we do that, we open up valves on the strong back, and as Kate and Marie were talking earlier, when we vent off that very cold gaseous oxygen, it'll merge with the warm, humid Florida air, and you'll get a large white plume of condensation off of the back of the strong back. That'll be normal coming about a minute and a half before launch. Everything continuing to look good.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete. Dragon is in auto idle.
All right, with that, the Falcon 9 is fully fueled. We have fuel on both the first and second stages, and both stages are filled with liquid
1段目
oxygen.
は燃料注入
Gas
完了
closeout
してい
has
ます。
started. Expect loud venting.
Dragon is also in auto idle. The flight computers on Dragon, maintaining their calculations, standing by, waiting for the T0 mark. 1 minute 15 seconds until launch. The 1 minute mark, Dragon will transition to countdown, and the flight termination system will arm computers on Falcon 9. We'll be talking to the computers on Dragon and can issue an abort if necessary.
FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling. Dragon is in countdown.
All right, 50 seconds to go. Everything is ready for an on-time launch today.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Go for launch 出ました。もう行きます。
Ground teams are ready, and the crew inside Dragon is ready.
準備 OK です。
30 seconds to go until launch.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mission and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour and Crew 2.
いい打ち上げ。
Endeavour launches once again. 4 astronauts from 3 countries on Crew 2, now making their way to the one and only International Space Station. The vehicle is pitching downrange. 9 Merlin engines on the first stage, providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Hearing good calls on first stage performance so far.
あ、嫌な雲に突入。
We are T plus 30 seconds into the second rotational crew mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9.
これ本当現場で見てたらすごいんでしょうけどね。
Throttling down the 9 Merlin engines shortly here in preparation for maximum dynamic pressure. And there's that call out for the throttle down. Maximum dynamic pressure, max Q, is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees throughout ascent. So throttling down does help us pass. Throttling down helps us pass through this period, which should be coming here shortly.
Max Q.
There's that call out that we have just passed through max Q.
Stage 1 throttle up.
And we can
Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
All right, 1 Bravo is the second abort mode on the first stage. The first stage continues to fire for 2 minutes 35 seconds. 1.5 minutes into today's
ただ
flight.
炎が汚いですね。あ、海の音が聞こえてますが。
Falcon 9 now traveling at more than 1,500 miles an hour.
どうしてもこの汚い炎が許せないんですけど。
MVAC engine chill started.
All right, the engine chill for the second stage single Merlin engine has started. About 30 more seconds of the first stage firing to bring our 4 astronauts into orbit.
Now from here, coming up in about 20-some seconds, we're going to have 3 major milestones. We'll have shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines. We're beginning to throttle them down. We will then get stage separation.
Throttle down.
And then we will get ignition of the second stage engine to propel Dragon and the Falcon 9 second stage into orbit.
あ、分離まで見られるんでしょうか。
2 Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
今分離しました。
Acquisition signal.
カメラ見失ったかな。2段目点火です。2段目もいい感じで熱くなってまいりました。スペース X の場合は1段目もこの後追わないといけないから大変ですよね。
And on the left side of your screen, we saw the exhaust of the second stage engine streaming past the first stage.
相変わらずの排他
As
的。
the grid fins are coming out, we also briefly had a view of the lights of Central Florida in the background. Currently, the first stage is continuing to coast up to apogee.
あれ、また排他的のこれ
It'll reach a peak
新しくなっ
height
て
and
ま
then
すか
begin
ね。
to descend back down toward the Earth's atmosphere, where it will light 3 engines to slow down in preparation for what will be a landing burn on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the grid fins are deployed right now. The first stage
Dragon,
pulsing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
2段目も
Pulsing the thrusters.
ノミナル順調です。
Copy, nominal trajectory.
We hear a call out from the crew, nominal trajectory.
今軌道はちゃんとしたとこ飛んでるということなので問題ないですね。まあここまで来てしまえばほぼ
4 minutes 15 seconds into today's flight. Second stage propelling our 4 astronauts up the eastern seaboard will continue to fire. It's a 6-minute burn to deliver the astronauts into orbit. We'll wait for a cue for good orbital insertion after that. Meanwhile, we'll be hearing check-ins on the vehicle's trajectory
1段目の周りいろんなものが
as
飛び
well
交
as
って
check-ins
ま
with
す
some of
ね
the。ground stations as it passes over throughout the 6 minutes of the second stage firing.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
今2段目星出さんの乗っている方の2段目は順調なコースを飛んでいるということです。
The New Hampshire tracking station has acquired the second stage telemetry signal. Meanwhile, the first stage has reached apogee and is now beginning to descend from a height. It's currently about 167 kilometers up, and in a few minutes we will get the entry burn of the second stage, of the first stage.
まだ周りに飛んでるものが見えてるので自由落下中ですかね。
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
これって1段目照明つけるようになったんだ。
Right on cue, those check-ins on the second stage performance. Once a minute, everything's looking good on that second stage.
Propulsion is nominal.
Stage 2
おお、
continues
地
to
球の
climb.
縁が見えてい
Vehicle
ます。
now exceeding 8,000 miles an hour at an altitude of about 124 miles.
今これで落ちてくるところですね、
Just about
1段目
1 minute
は。
from now, we will begin the entry burn of the first stage. That'll consist of lighting the center engine, and then shortly afterwards, 2 more engines for a 3-engine burn to slow down the first stage in preparation for entering the Earth's atmosphere.
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
2段目も順
Another
調
check
そ
in.
うで
Crew
すね。
confirming they're hearing the same thing. The vehicle exceeding, are about to exceed about 10,000 miles per hour.
Meanwhile, first stage down at 90 kilometers, getting ready to relight 3 engines for the entry burn.
まあもう2段目の方は大丈夫でしょう。お、今1段目の方が逆噴射
We've got the
サ
center
ウロン
engine
の目にな
ignition,
っていま
and
す。
there come the
い
2
や、久しぶ
side
りに見る
engines.
な。
Now this entry burn will last about 29 seconds. It's going to significantly slow down the vehicle in preparation for hitting the denser part of the Earth's atmosphere.
そうですね。これ焼けて溶けるタイプのノズルなんで。
Entry burn complete. We're down below 35 kilometers, continuing to look good on the first stage, heading to the Atlantic Ocean for a landing on the drone ship.
あ、向こうは
While
昼なん
second
の
stage is
か
less than a
な。
minute away from cutoff.
あ、どんどんもう地球に向かって落ちているのが分かりますね。日が当たってるの
Stage
か。
2 in terminal guidance.
今ものすごい勢いでロケット落下中です。
Shannon called out at the back end of stage 2, a few seconds until cutoff.
お、切れた。
MVAC shutdown.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system disarmed.
Launch escape system disarmed. Copy.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbit insertion.
2段目は順調
Copy.
に
Nominal orbital insertion.
順調な飛行を
Right, the
継続
Falcon 9
中で
second
す。
stage has done its job, delivering our
あ、2段目が今軌道に乗ったようですね。エンジン停止が見られませんでしたね。
We're waiting to get a video signal
あ、止まっ
back
てますね。
from the drone ship. Of course, I still love
2
you.
段目は無事
And
軌
the
道に
view
乗り
from
ま
the
した。
onboard camera, we saw it just briefly. It looks like first stage on the drone ship. Getting views of the Dragon trunk. So the first stage is on the drone ship, successfully landed. And more importantly, second stage is in a
もう昼
nominal
の
orbit with the Dragon spacecraft
側
getting
まで
ready
飛ん
for
できちゃっ
some
てますね。
important events coming up, Gary.
That's right. About 2 more minutes, the Dragon and the second stage of the Falcon 9 will be in a coast phase. It'll take that long until the spacecraft separates from the Falcon 9.
エンジンも真っ白に燃え
Of
尽き
course,
た
both
ぜという
now
感
in
じ
a
になっていま
nominal
す。
orbit.
ちょっと今回
Great to
1段
see
目
some
から
of
の
the
映像が
views of the Earth as it passes by over the North Atlantic Ocean.
これで切り離しがまで見られますかね。お、中の人も無事です。なぜローアングラーなのか分かりませんが。
I'm looking for that 0G indicator.
なぜローアングルなのか。
Can't seem to see it in this shot, but we have a minute to go until we have spacecraft separation. Dragon traveling at nearly 17,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 124 miles.
これこっち側にいるの星出さんですか。ちょっと光っちゃってわかんない。
Again, the 4-person crew of Endeavour
だいぶ
is in
なんか
orbit
マス
right
ク
now.
が曇ってるように見えるんだけど気のせいかな。
Less than 30 seconds until we have spacecraft separation.
今ね急に無重力になったんで
10 seconds to spacecraft separation.
これやっぱ慣れない人は
We should
足
hear
が落
words
ち着か
from
ない
the
ですよ
core
ね。
here in Mission Control Hawthorne once we have successful separation.
多分今かなり気持ち悪い状況になってると思います。慣れてる人は大丈夫なんでしょうけど。あ、今分離しました。いってらっしゃい。
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon, SpaceX, Falcon team wishes you a great rest of your trip. Say hi to the crew of Dragon who's waiting for us and let them know your rocket is home safe. Thanks for flying our first flight-proven, crewed Falcon 9. See you airside, Crew 2.
これ今ロケット側から見た映
Thank you
像です
very
ね。
much. We're great. It's glad to be back in space for all of us, and we'll send our regards to Crew 1 when we get there. Thanks.
Absolutely stunning views from both inside the cabin, seeing the excitement of our 4-person crew inside Endeavour, and watching Endeavour drift away from the camera on the second stage as the Earth passes by on an orbital sunrise.
SpaceX Endeavour week.
もう無重力になって
And
ます。
Endeavour, you cut out a little bit there. If the question was if you're go to open visors, you are go to open visors.
いや、わかんないですけど。
Copy and work. Thanks.
All right, 13 and a half minutes past liftoff. The crew is in orbit, traveling at nearly 17,000 miles an hour.
お、もうバイザー上げましたね。なので安全がもう確保できているようですね。
Well, Gary, I don't know about you, but that was a great countdown. Everything sounded great. Right on time, actually a little ahead of time.
Nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
Got a good orbit out of
これから
Falcon 9, and first
ドラゴ
stage
ンの
landed on
エ
the
ン
drone
ジン
ship,
チェックする
and we're in
チ
the
ェックが入る
sunlight
ようです
over
ね。
the Atlantic Ocean with the Dragon spacecraft. All in all, a great day.
I think everybody's jealous of the crew in orbit right now, John. These views, even just from the cameras, are absolutely stunning. It was great to see our crew members get into orbit. They already performed successful checkouts of the 12 service section Dracos around Dragon. The next milestone will be the deployment of the nose cone. That'll be about a 5-minute process, but that'll expose the forward bulkhead Dracos and prepare them for checkout. There's a phase burn. There's 5 major burns that are needed to get the Crew Dragon up to rendezvous with the International Space Station over the next 23 hours. And so that first phase burn is coming up real soon in about 35 minutes, actually less than 35 minutes.
一番向こう側にいるのが星出さんですね。
Jesse, I don't know if you could see the 0G indicator, but I was told it's a penguin. I'm trying to look for it.
I'm looking for it too. Keep an eye out on that left-hand screen.
Meanwhile, the Dragon is configured for a nose cone deployment. We'll stand by for when that sequence starts.
ちょっと今日回線が
The nose cone itself opens just beyond 90 degrees, about 105 degrees to expose the forward bulkhead Dracos. Those forward bulkhead Dracos, 4 of them at the very top of the Dragon, will do the bulk of the work when it comes to firing the Draco engines for minutes at a time to increase the Dragon's speed, altitude, and phasing to catch up with the International Space Station again over the next 23 hours. Meanwhile, we're still getting camera views from the second stage, looking at that expansion nozzle. Did its work beautifully to deliver the 4 crew into orbit. Dragon over the North Atlantic Ocean.
And Gary, this is John. I think I heard a call out on
ね。
one of the Dragon nets that the first set of nose cone hooks is open. So it sounds like that sequence is going well.
Very good. Well, Well, from here in Hawthorne, it was very exciting to see the Falcon9 lift off and deliver our 4-person crew into orbit. We're going to be with you throughout the entire phase, the rendezvous phase, until Dragon and this 4-person crew docks with the International Space Station. That'll be over the next 23 hours. We'll bring you through some of those major burns that are happening. But I am so jealous of Marie and the group over there over at the Kennedy Space Center. You actually got to see the launch and probably feel it as well. Marie, what was that like?
この NASA の人と SpaceX の人の服装の違いが。
Spectacular, and you know the sun hasn't come up yet here in Florida, but you know we were able to just turn around and see the launch right behind us,
ドッキングは明日の6時ぐらいですね、夕方の。
Absolutely breathtaking.
なんで1日かかりま
It was
す。
so astounding to see the colors. I mean, it was not just your usual fireball, but there was pulsating towards the end. And Kate, you're much more eloquent describing that sequence, which I appreciate you doing that while we were
happy to help.
Staring. It was so fun, and knowing that those guys were enjoying the ride along with.
はい、Amazon もロケット作ってますね。ただ Amazon のやつはまっすぐ上がってまっすぐ降りてくるだけなので。
And of course, we were so lucky to have clear
軌道に
weather
乗せ
here,
る
being
感
able
じじゃ
to
ないんで
see
すよね。
the re-entry burn as well. I was hoping we were going to be able to catch landing burn, but unfortunately, clouds on the horizon did block that view. But it was also such a treat to be able to see the re-entry of that first stage as
宇
well.
宙女子ばっかり。
Let's go over to Jasmine to get some reaction. I think she's with the NASA administrator now. Jasmine?
Thanks.
3人
Thank
と
you,
も宇
Marie.
宙
Yes,
飛行士。
I'm joined again here with Steve Jerzik. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So we just had the privilege of watching that spectacular launch in person. What was that like?
Watching a launch, particularly a human space launch, will never get old for
Hello.
me. It's just thrilling to see those 9 engines light up and it lift off the pad, get to the main engine cutoff and separation, and get that second stage started. And of course, pre-dawn launches are always amazing, and you know, we could see the vehicle pretty much through the entire trajectory up to
Nah,
Earth orbit. It was just spectacular.
I
Right,
cannot
absolutely.
speak
It was
English.
just stunning, and the sun is just now starting to peek over the clouds here. So do you have any final words of encouragement for our NASA team, our SpaceX team, and our international partners?
Yeah, you know, partnerships are key to what we do, particularly in human spaceflight. Our partnership with SpaceX has been tremendous. 3rd launch in less than a year, after almost a 10-year gap in human spaceflight, launching astronauts from
あ、ぜ
American
ひ皆さん
soil
チャンネル
on
登録よろ
rockets.
しくお願いいたします。
So our partnership with SpaceX and our commercial partners, other commercial partners, is critical, and our international partners. We
ド
could
ッキン
not
グ
do
は
this
明
without
日
them.
の 夜の6時ぐらいっていうことなんで、ドッキングもライブやり
One
ま
from
す。
ESA and one from Jaxa, and obviously the ISS is the largest engineering international collaboration in the history of humankind, and it continues to amaze me how well we work together in doing all the research and technology on ISS. And I'm just so grateful for the NASA SpaceX team for their hard work and getting this 3rd launch off, the Crew 2 launch, and looking forward to docking and hatch opening and the welcome ceremony, and also looking forward to Crew 1 return next Thursday on the 28th.
Right. A lot of action still going on at the station right now. So as you mentioned, the next big milestone for Crew 2 will be docking at the station. So where are you going to be for that action?
I'm actually going to stay here at Kennedy Space Center and follow the free flight up to docking, and then I'm going to participate in the welcoming ceremony with my counterparts from ESA, the Director General of ESA, and the President of Jaxa, and welcome the Crew 2 astronauts to the ISS.
Fantastic. Kennedy is the place to be right now then, I guess. Do you have any final remarks that you want to share with us today?
Hey, you know, I'm
なん
just
か
so
本当かな、
proud
生
of
配
the
信
team.
続きでちょっと
I'm so proud
私の
of
体
what
力が
this team has been able to
持つかどうかわかり
accomplish
ません。
over the past year, particularly. It's been especially challenging, global pandemic and other challenges, and just the focus of the team to get these 3 crew launches off, as well as launch Perseverance, land Perseverance, first powered flight, control powered flight of a vehicle on
今
another
火星の方の
planet,
話を
first
してま
time
すね。
generating oxygen from the atmosphere of Mars. and really looking forward to the core stage
なんか酸素を
for
作るって
SLS
いう
getting
話も
here
今してました
and
けど、
us moving forward to the first uncrewed test flight, Artemis 1 of SLS and Orion. So accomplished an incredible amount in
い
this
や
last
船
year
内である
and
程度動
much more
け
to
るとは
accomplish in
思
the
い
year
ます
to
けど
come.
ね。
Absolutely. We've got a bright future right here at NASA.
まあ
Thank
無
you
重
so
力なん
much,
で座ってても
NASA
そんなに
Administrator
は
Steve
疲れ
Jurzik
ない
for
んじゃないです
joining
か。
us today. Now we're going to take it back to the KSC host desk.
Thanks, Jasmine. Shane, Megan, Thomas, and Aki are on course to arrive at the International Space Station around 5:10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And we're going to stay on the air for continuous live coverage along their entire ride to station. Though our coverage here at Kennedy Space Center is concluding, we're going to turn it
明
over to
日
the
の
teams
6
at
時ぐらい
Hopper
に
and
ドッキングですの
Houston
でま
to
た
take
ライ
us
ブや
through
り
the
ま
next
す。
phases of the Crew 2 mission, all the way through hatch opening and a welcome ceremony for the crew.
ハッチオープニング
For
は
those
そ
of
の
you
また
watching
後ですが。
online on YouTube, take a look at the description below the video. There you'll find the new link for the Crew 2 rendezvous and coast phase. Live coverage will continue at that new location.
今日はねちょっと曇
And if
り
you're
気味
watching
な
on
んで
NASA
休ま
TV,
せ
you
てい
won't
ただ
miss
き
a
たいと
thing,
思いま
and
す。
coverage will continue.
That's right, and as you follow along, we invite you to tune into a post-launch news conference at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time right here on NASA TV, where NASA and SpaceX will take questions live. In addition to NASA TV, you can always follow along on Twitter at @NASA, @SpaceX, and nasa.gov for mission updates. Huge thanks to all of our guests for joining us today, and thank all of you for getting up early on the East Coast and watching. Now here are highlights from the journey to orbit off the Earth for the
今日は
Earth.
なしでお願いいたします。
We can
これ着付けシーンですね。星出さんもいる。さすが星出さんもシャトルで行ったりソユーズで行ったりしてるのでもう慣れた感じが。それでも3回目なんで毎回違った生き方をしてるってことですよね。ああ、弁当箱持ってないですね。これ何ですか？車テスラなのかな？あ、テスラなんですね。こうしてなんか飛行機に乗り込むような感じで、こう黒子の衣装がまたかっこいいじゃないですか。まあでもいい打ち上げになりました。さて、それじゃあ、ドッキングの模様はまた明日やりますので、また見に来てください、皆さん。ちょっと今日は天気がやや曇り気味と私のがお疲れ気味ということで、今日の配信はお休みさせていただきます。はい、それでは皆さんありがとうございました。また明日お会いしましょう。夕方ですね。 6時ぐらいの予定ということなんで。ぜひチャンネル登録よろしくお願いいたします。ではでは、また明日お会いしましょう。はい、ありがとうございました。ではでは。